Okay, so get ready to raise your glass, because today we're diving into the world of drinks.
Cheers to that.
But, and here's the twist, we're not just talking about taste buds.
No.
We're going on an etymological adventure to uncover the surprising Slavic linguistic connections hidden within the very words we use for our favorite beverages.
It's amazing what you can learn from a simple word, isn't it?
And our guide for this fascinating journey is this article from COGNIARCHAE titled Slavs in the History of Alcohol, an Etymological Journey.
Have you ever really thought about it? I mean, those words we use so casually.
Like wine or beer, or even something like mead, which not everyone's familiar with.
Right.
They're not just labels, they're like little time capsules carrying echoes of ancient cultures, migrations, all sorts of historical tidbits.
And when you dig into those words, especially when it comes to something as universal as alcohol, you start to see these incredible connections.
Connections that challenge what we thought we knew about the past.
Now, I know what you might be thinking.
Slavs and alcohol. Vodka, right?
That's the stereotype, for sure.
And while vodka definitely has its place in history, this article, it takes us way beyond that.
Much deeper.
It makes the case that many drink-related terms are best understood, get this, through the lens of Slavic languages.
And we're not just talking about vodka here. We're talking mead, beer, even opium. These linguistic links, they paint a different picture of the ancient world.
It's like we're piecing together a puzzle, and each word is a clue.
It's all about understanding how cultures interacted, traded, and even potentially migrated in the ancient world.
Right, because these things, they didn't happen in isolation.
Not at all.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's start, I think, with a story.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
And I have to warn you, it's a bit out there.
Hit me with it.
So picture this, a group of Norse gods just hanging out, standing around a bowl,
Casual.
and they're all spitting into it.
That took a turn.
Right. But here's the thing, this isn't just any ordinary spit.
I would hope not.
This is divine saliva.
Okay.
And they're using it to create Kvasir, the wisest being in Norse mythology.
Okay, so we've gone from casual hangout to creating a being of pure wisdom at a spit.
That's Norse mythology for you.
And what happens to this Kvasir?
Well, sadly, he doesn't just get to walk around being wise and dispensing knowledge.
No.
No, he's later killed.
Oh, no.
And his blood,
His blood.
yes, his blood, is mixed with honey to create a magical mead that grants wisdom and poetic inspiration.
Wow. That's a lot to process.
It is a lot, right? We go from spit to a wise being, to a drink made from his blood that makes you, a better poet.
It's certainly a unique origin story for a drink.
It really is, but here's the thing. This myth,
Yeah.
it might not be entirely fictional.
You're kidding?
I'm serious. There are real-world practices in some cultures where communal spitting is used to jumpstart fermentation. Wait, are you serious? Like people spitting in their brews?
Well, it might sound strange to us, but in ancient times, who knows? And here's the really interesting part. The Slavic word for yeast, kvasak, is thought to be the only word with a clear etymological link to this whole spitting fermentation idea.
You've got to be kidding me. So we might have a Slavic connection to the ancient practice of using spit to make alcohol.
It's a definite possibility. And there's even more to it. The word kvas, that Slavic fermented drink.
Oh, like a bread drink. I've heard of that.
Exactly. That also links back to this whole idea. The article even mentions that kvasiti in Slavic languages means to sprinkle or to make wet. It all seems to point back to that ancient practice.
This is incredible. We're talking about a single word, yeast, and it's potentially unlocked this whole hidden history of ancient brewing practices.
It just goes to show you language is full of these hidden surprises.
So from spit gods to yeast, we're starting to see just how deep these Slavic linguistic connections to alcohol really go. So let's start with mead. It's honey-based and considered like humanity's first alcoholic drink, right?
Yeah, mead predates both beer and wine.
But what makes this drink so significant, like in the grand scheme of drinks?
Well, you see, mead relies solely on honey, water, and natural fermentation. No need for agriculture. The blog post mentions this archaeological evidence suggesting mead production existed as far back as 7,000 BCE in China.
Whoa, 7,000 BCE.
Yeah, that means people were enjoying this drink way before they were even cultivating grapes or grains.
That is incredible. You know what I find interesting? In English, the words honey and mead don't really seem connected. But in Slavic languages, it's so obvious.
It's true. The connection is right there.
Med for honey, medovic or medovacha for mead, you instantly see the link. The blog post even suggests a possible connection between mead, goddess cults, and ancient bee imagery.
Really? That's fascinating.
Right, like a whole other layer of history is just waiting to be explored. But speaking of historical layers, let's move on to beer. Seems like a simple word, but I bet there's more to it than meets the eye. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. The word beer itself simply means a drink, and we see this mirrored in the Slavic pivo, from piti, meaning to drink. But here's where it gets really interesting. The blog post draws a parallel between the Sumerian word for beer, kash, and the Slavic word kasha.
Okay.
Both refer to a type of porridge or gruel.
Wait, so ancient Sumerian beer was basically like drinking porridge?
Pretty much.
Now, all those old descriptions of beer having a thick, almost chewy consistency makes sense. Like that one etymological link just changed how we understand early beer.
Exactly. It really gives you a new appreciation for how resourceful those ancient brewers were, doesn't it? They were working with what they had available. And it seems they managed to create a drink that was both satisfying and, of course, intoxicating.
It definitely makes you appreciate a nice, cold, crisp, modern beer, that's for sure.
Get ready for this, because this time we're talking about a mysterious drink known as Thracian green wine.
Thracian green wine. You're kidding, right? That sounds like something straight out of a fantasy novel.
It does, doesn't it? But this was a real drink enjoyed by the ancient Thracians who lived in southeastern Europe.
Okay, what's so mysterious about it? And what's the Slavic connection?
Well, the Thracians had this word for their wine, zelas, but its meaning has always been a bit of a puzzle.
Okay, so how do we get from a mysterious Thracian word to Slavic languages?
Because in Slavic languages, the word zelia refers to something quite specific, a magical potion made from herbs. Think zeleno for green.
Hold on, are you suggesting that the Thracian zelas, their word for wine, might actually be related to the Slavic word for a magical herbal potion?
That's exactly what we're saying, and it gets even more interesting. Russian folklore is full of references to something called green wine. It's an alcoholic drink made with yeast and herbs, traditionally used in celebrations, especially weddings.
Wait, so this green wine, it's not just a theoretical potion, it's an actual drink that's part of Slavic traditions.
It appears so. And these similarities between the Thracian zelas and the Slavic green wine are hard to ignore.
It's like we're uncovering a hidden link between these two cultures, a shared heritage that goes way beyond anything we learned in history class.
Exactly. And who knows what other connections are still waiting to be discovered? It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
It really does. Get ready for this last one because it's a real head-scratcher. We're talking about opium.
Opium.
Opium. I was shocked to learn that even this word might have a Slavic origin.
Now that is surprising.
Right.
Tell me more.
So the blog post makes a compelling argument. It highlights the Slavic opiadice, meaning to get drunk. And while the exact origin of opium is still, up for debate, the link is hard to ignore, especially considering the root of the word is pidi, meaning to drink. It's crazy to think that a word like associated with something as potent and historically significant as opium could have like roots in a simple word like drink. It kind of reframes how you think about the history of these substances, doesn't it?
It does, and it speaks to the power of etymology.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, from honey-based mead to like the surprising possibility of opium's Slavic roots. What's the common thread that ties all these drinks together?
Culture. These drinks and the languages used to describe them offer us a glimpse into the shared human experience. Like, it reveals these connections that transcend time and geography.
And we wouldn't even have known about these connections without taking this deep dive into Slavic languages.
Right.
It's amazing what you can learn when you start digging into word origins. But we saved the best for last.
Oh, and what would that be?
We're going all the way back to the god of intoxication himself, Dionysus.
Dionysus. Always a good time.
Right. But you might be asking, what does the Greek god of wine have to do with Slavic languages?
Well, it's not so much a direct connection as a fascinating coincidence, a sort of chronological overlap that really makes you think.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So Dionysus, he's often considered to be like the OG symbol of, drunkenness, ecstasy.
Like the life of the party in the ancient world.
Exactly. And his origins, they can be traced back to the Balkans.
Which makes sense, right?
Right. But here's where it gets interesting. Ancient writers, they claimed that Dionysus, he traveled all the way to India and back.
India? That's a long way to go for a good time.
I know, right? But it gets even better. According to some sources, this epic journey, it took place roughly 6,451 years before Alexander the Great.
Okay, and What does that mean timeline-wise?
Well, if we do a little math, that puts Dionysus's grand adventure right around 7000 BCE.
7,000 BCE. Wait a minute, isn't that...
Exactly.
That's when we find the earliest evidence of mead production in China.
Bingo! It's quite a coincidence, isn't it?
Coincidence? That's an understatement.
Yeah.
So he had this god of intoxication, potentially on a legendary party tour throughout Asia, at the exact same time that humans are figuring out how to make mead.
The original party drink.
It's almost too perfect, isn't it?
It really is. Now, of course, we can't say for sure that there's a direct connection here.
Right.
But this chronological overlap, it's hard to ignore, especially when we consider everything else we've learned about these ancient Slavic linguistic connections to the world of alcohol.
This entire deep dive has been eye-opening. I mean, we started with this simple question about drinks, and we ended up on this incredible journey through time, mythology, the evolution of language itself.
It just goes to show you that the most unassuming words can hold the keys to unlocking these incredible secrets about our past.
It really does. So the next time you raise a glass to, well, anything, take a moment to think about the words you're using.
Because you never know what hidden stories they might be waiting to tell.
Cheers to that.
Yeah.
And on that note, listeners, we wrap up another deep dive into the fascinating world of etymology and history. Until next time, keep those minds open and those glasses full.